For your polyhedron shape, you want to make sure that you're thinking about whether you want the edges of the circle to show and have the triangle on the interior to make it a true polyhedron. If you want to glue it together with the circles on the outside and then trim it, or if you want to fold these tabs so that they're on the inside of your circles. So here's what I mean by that. So first we need to fold some equilateral triangles on the inside of our circles. I've already cut some of my circles out. I'm not going to glue together the entire polyhedron right now, but I do want to show you how to fold these. So I want to get 3 equal sides. So I'm going to kind of guesstimate at first where I think about a third of a triangle would be. And I'm going to use a straight edge, and I'm going to use that to make my first fold. So there's one, and then I'm going to make another tab that's about that same size. I want to make sure I have a nice clean edge where I'm folding, because it's really important that I get these triangles to be equal so that as I'm gluing the edges together, they fit together neatly. So this one looks a little smaller than that first one, so I'm actually going to redo that fold slightly. And if you're using a ruler, you can see about how long that line is. So there's fold number 2. And then my third one looks like it'll be about equal once I fold it in. So just to get a nice crisp fold, I'm going to find where those first 2 ended, and then I'll pull up this last piece. So here, when I look at this triangle, it's just about equal on each side. I can see maybe that bottom one's a little bit off, but it should still work for the most part for what I'm doing. So if you don't want those edges to show, you can glue them together where the tabs are on the inside. So I can reverse this. So that way, when I glue, you're only seeing the triangle face, whereas, on this one, I'm also seeing the circle. So that's something you need to consider in your design. Okay, and then I know that I want, my gradient to show on these. So when I'm making those folds, I'm going to be intentional about making sure that I'm doing it kind of in the middle of my gradient there. And since I've already done one of my triangles, I'll know about how big these tabs need to be for the second one. I'm doing my best to make equilateral triangles. They might not be perfect, but you want to be as precise as possible. So I do think I like having just the triangle face show, so I'm going to fold these back going the other way. So when I glue these together, those little tabs are going to be on the inside here. And, using the ruler helps too, because I'm seeing, each fold has been about 2 1/4 inches long. So having that background will help my next folds go a little bit faster. And if it helps you to do this on the side that you didn't color in, you can do that too. So here I don't have those 2 edges meeting at the point, so I want to pull those together. And I'm going to fold these back. So the reason we started with the circle is because when you get to those corners, that paper is not going to overlap so much. Whereas if you started out with a larger triangle and tried to cut it down, you might have a more challenging time getting those folds. So I'm just going to lay these out kind of how I'm intending to do them. And I'm not going to put together my entire polyhedron, but I will show you how to start gluing if you get to that point today. We will continue with this, with the gluing part tomorrow, but at minimum, you should have your pieces cut out and at least some of them folded. So I'm going to do it over on the white side, actually, see if that's a little easier to see. Yes, it is. And, you know, this will take a couple tries probably to get how you want it, but all right. So then when I look at my edges, they're pretty equal. If I see that one of them is not quite lining up, I can always just redo one of my folds to get it to match up. Okay, so if I do not want my glue tabs to show, I'm going to glue them together on the inside. You'll need just a little bit of glue. Definitely use the liquid glue. You don't want to use a glue stick for this. I want this piece to be in the center of the warm colors. So I'm going to start with this one. I only need to glue that one tab there. And I'm going to line up the edge of my other equilateral triangle. And I really want to pinch this together to get it to stick really well. Since this is going to end up being a three-dimensional form, I really want to make sure that my joints are holding. So that way when I add on more faces, it doesn't start to come apart. So you want to have a very clear base. Now I could, at this stage, decide to make a polyhedron with just those 4 faces, but I think I want to make a larger one. So again, I'm going to glue on this one piece here. I like to take a finger and spread that glue out just a little bit. That helps it to dry slightly quicker. And I'm going to press, really get that base to stick together. And you can see, you know, it's not perfect, but the triangles themselves are pretty equal on the sides. So that's really what is going to be the most important when you're putting these together. And then for this last piece. Now, whenever you're adding on your last piece, that will be the trickiest part because you're going to be trying to get 3 faces to stick together at the same time. Whereas now I'm just, or 3 edges stick together at the same time. So whereas right now, I'm able to really hold one at a time. Now, if I was doing the smallest polyhedron, I would wait for these to dry before pulling them together for my last side. But here, these 2 would join up, so you could glue those faces together. But as you can see, my edges aren't dry enough to do that, and then those pieces are going to come apart. So here's like 1 unit. So I know I want to have cool colors mixed in between my warm colors. So what I would do is I'm going to make another set like this and get the glue to start to hold. So I'm going to start on another cool color piece with warm colors around it. And then I'm going to do the opposite. So then I'll have a warm color piece and I'll do my cool colors with the shading around it. So I'm going to continue folding up my pieces and gluing them together. And then as I'm a little bit farther along, then I can glue some of my larger pieces together. So I'm working on one that's going to have 20 faces. Some of you might be working on one that just has 8. This is a good intermediate level. And if this is your first time working on this, I would recommend doing the polyhedron that has 4 faces. So I'll leave that up to you. But here's, again, how you get that equilateral triangle. Get a straight edge and fold those edges back, making sure that you have a point there. And try to get all of those sides even so that when you get to the gluing stage, the edges of your triangles are all the same size. So you can see I have to go back in and readjust on some of these, but that's a good way to test if you have an equilateral triangle. You can fold all those pieces down to check your edges, make sure you've got points there. So, this is going to end up being somewhere around here, and then I'll have, a couple more warm colors going around the edge there. So go ahead and finish coloring, cutting your pieces, and then start folding them into equilateral triangles. If I wanted the edges of my circle to show, I would fold them up, but since I am making mine to where those pieces go on the inside, I'm going to fold them behind where the color is. So try to get as many of those folded today as you can. And then again, tomorrow we're going to work on these together to get them finished up.